Welcome to The Artist Matters. I'm Alex Rudy, and each week you will meet incredible artists from all walks of life. Filmmakers, writers, actors, painters, musicians, and so many more, sharing their stories to motivate and inspire the creative in you. Whether you're doing it for fun or looking to make a living, this show will help you on your journey to bring out the artist within and letting the world know that your art matters. Hello, one and all. Welcome to another episode of The Artist Matters. I am your host, Alex Rudy. Well, very thankful you're here and thankful for all who have been listening to the show. Thanks for getting the word out there. We are at episode 9 right now, officially. And I'm so glad to be putting out this content for you. It's so great to feature all these artists and tell their stories. Well, today's episode is a little bit of a cheat. This interview I did was from last year. I created another podcast last year called The Park Podcast, and it was about me making my short movie, The Park. So I followed the journey from when I came up with the idea all the way through to me getting into the Tampa Bay Underground Film Festival. So, furthering my creative ideas, I thought I could compose the music for my movie. And I tried some things, but it was just taking up too much time and I was getting nowhere. I really don't know how to read or write music, so I had a good feel of ideas, but it was getting me nowhere. So eventually I found today's guest, Erik Herrmann, online, thanks to my cameraman/editor of the movie. And I sent him a sample of the movie, and he started coming up with music, and it was really good stuff. He took it in a direction I wasn't expecting. And that's a good thing. It made the movie so much better. Music is a character in any movie. You wouldn't have Jaws without that theme music. There'd be no Star Wars without that music. So it's vital. And not just in movies, of course. It's a part of our lives. So much of our lives can be attributed to songs we listened to when we were growing up. And Erik grew up in Louisiana. His father is a creative type, plays music and does photography, so it seemed inevitable that it would rub off on Erik, and he got into bass guitar and piano. He went to college for it and teaches music and also has a YouTube channel. And most recently, he's started in a band called Slow Apollo. You'll hear about that in next week's episode, because at the time I did this interview with him last year, I think it was August, he wasn't in the band. And yes, I probably could have done a new interview with him, but, this one was pretty good. It's got the spontaneity and the flow of a really good interview. So yes, I'm going to replay it with a few slight edits, because it was more geared towards the Park Podcast, but there were questions that were relevant to The Artist Matters. I was thinking of The Artist Matters back then. I even thought I was going to launch the podcast last October, but obviously I didn't. Anyway, this is still a good interview. It fits into here. I didn't ask him why art matters, but he will give you that answer on next week's episode, where he'll pop in on the interview I do with the lead singer of his band Slow Apollo. So be ready for that. But in the meantime, sit back and enjoy my interview with music composer Erik Herrmann. All right. Well, we have Erik Herrmann on the podcast. Welcome.
Hey, how are you?
Awesome. How's it going?
Doing all right.
So what I wanted to start off with is, have you always had this creative spark?
I would say for most of my childhood and from like my early adolescence on, yeah, definitely. In middle school, I picked up the guitar and started messing around with it, and then I got serious about it in high school. And when it came time to decide about college, I found out that the local university to me, which is Louisiana State University, has a composition program, and I guess I just kind of decided that's what I was going to do, and so I got real serious about it, and I've been seriously composing and being a musician ever since then.
Wow, so the guitar was the first instrument, huh?
Yeah, well, actually, it was the bass guitar.
Bass guitar.
My dad bought it for me when I was like 6, maybe, and I may have played on it a couple of times, but bass isn't a really it's not a very sexy instrument when you're 6. But as I got older, I definitely took it more seriously. So I picked up the guitar and then went back to bass actually, and now I play bass, guitar, piano, drums, the double bass, a whole bunch of different instruments.
Whoa. Well, it is moving up. So family was supportive of these artistic abilities early on?
Oh, yeah. Well, my dad definitely was. Everybody was supportive, but my dad was probably the biggest influence. He, that side of my family, my paternal side of my family, we have a long kind of line of musicians. So he's a musician. He grew up playing guitar and bass. His brother played, his dad played, his dad's dad played. They were all in like jazz clubs and everything else. So, so he was definitely a big inspiration to me.
So the earliest memory of getting into music, was it really young that something about music was you were drawn to?
Yeah, well, he played all the time, and he would play along with recordings, play along with the radio. Never really professionally that I saw, and he did it a little bit more before I was born. But I never got to see any of that. Most of it was just kind of him after work or on the weekends playing guitar, and I would just be in the room playing video games or just watching him. And so it was just always kind of there. It was always kind of there in the background. Like I didn't know somebody to not just pick up a guitar all the time and play it just for fun. So it's kind of just that's how I've always looked at it.
So high school is where it started to really become more serious.
Mm-hmm.
And so were you part of a music department or band or anything like that?
Well, kind of a funny story. Most people start, at least in my school system, start in middle school. So you are in 6th grade, you're asked if you want to be in band or not. And I don't think I was ever actually asked that. So one way or the other, I missed it in middle school. I played personally, but that was about it. And I also moved school systems. But anyway, when I came back, I moved to Tennessee. And when I came back in 9th grade, they were signing me up for my classes. And they said, they wanted me to pick an elective. And so I said, I'll pick band as my elective. And they said, were you in band in Tennessee? And they had no way of knowing whether I was or not. They had my transcripts all screwed up anyway. So it was like, yep. And they were like, what did you play? And I just picked an instrument. I literally just looked around the band room and said, percussion. And they stuck me on a drum. And I was kind of, by my own fault, I was forced to kind of just learn the instrument on the spot. So, in high school, I was kind of forced to take it seriously.
All right. So after high school, you decided to go to college. Did you get the first choice? You said you went to a school for composing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I went to. I applied. Actually, I only applied at LSU.
Oh.
And I got in right away. They asked me to submit an original composition, and which at the time I had only. Again, it was kind of a fluke. I downloaded some notation software to notate. I don't even remember what it was. I wasn't a composer at the time, but I downloaded notation software that was free to write something down. Maybe it was for the band that I was in at the time or a church group or something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I downloaded it, and because it was on my computer and because it came with cool sounds of all these different instruments, which are really terrible in retrospect, but at the time I thought they were cool, I just started fiddling around with it. And so over time I got more and more invested in just fiddling around with it. And when I saw that they had a composition thing and that I needed a composition, I kind of scrambled to write one. And printed it up and brought it to LSU, and the dean of I forgot what his name is. His name is Dinos Constantinides, but he was the head of the composition department.
No.
he looked at he's like this really old Greek guy. It was really hard to understand, but he was super cool. He just looked it over and just looked at the notes. I think I brought in a CD with like the record of it, with like a MIDI realization of it. And he didn't even listen to it. He just kind of looked at the dots and said, "Yeah, all right, go downstairs and tell him I said you're in," and like scribbled his name on a piece of paper, and that was that. So I don't know if they just had if they didn't have a lot of big pool to draw from or whatever else, but I got in like easy as could be.
Oh, nice.
So, but of course, like I said, then the pressure was on me to stand up to it, because now I'm at university level. I got to start doing my homework.
Wow. And so you had to come up with several compositions during a semester? How does that work?
Well, he had kind of a peculiar way of doing things. He was really into like avant-garde music and like atonal music. So, which I was not. I was more into classical and Baroque or jazz. And so most of his class was listening to like Bela Bartok and people of that era, and just kind of writing little paragraphs about what you heard in the music and identifying the patterns. And I mean, it was almost more math than it was composition. Wow. At first anyway. And he asked us to write, so like he would give us challenges like, okay, use 6 notes and write a 2-minute piece of music. And so I could only use 6 notes to do that. So it was compositions, but they were kind of like technical compositions, not really something you would actually want performed,
Oh, wow. Was a final exam a bigger composition?
No, there wasn't a final exam. It was just, they kind of just keep passing you along. I actually I had some problems with money and some car troubles, and I was on my own. My family moved away, and I wound up dropping out after a little while in university. So I didn't actually get to see the end of the program, but no, they kind of just kept passing you along. So long as you showed up and kept doing your work, you pretty much got an A, which paints a bad picture of it. But like I say, it was a really small group, and we all really did try. So, but it wasn't a very rigorous, compose an orchestra or compose a massive piece of work for every semester. It wasn't anything like that.
So you never got to go back and complete it?
No, not yet. I have gone back since then and done all of my gen ed classes and a couple more of my music classes. That's where the double bass comes in. I decided I wasn't going to go back for composition. I was going to go for music education, because I could still study composition, but I would be certified to teach as a fallback. So I actually switched gears, and I'm doing a music education course now. But 1 year into my program, my house flooded. We got 36 inches of water in my house last year, and I lost pretty much everything, all my instruments and a ton of money, and it took about 8 months to repair it. So as of now, and then I had a 2-year-old. I have a 2-year-old now, so it's really hard to do university with a 2-year-old. So
yeah,
I'm almost at the end.
Well, sorry to hear about that. I mean, goodness.
Nah, it's fine.
So you had to I guess you had to rebuild some of your musical instrument collection after that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I lost everything but, I don't know, maybe 2 instruments. My piano, I had I don't know, like a dozen guitars, and almost all of those got destroyed. I wound up saving my double bass because I needed an orchestral instrument to go to university, so I bought a double bass and had to learn how to play it. And kind of on a whim, I decided to stick it in the attic. I didn't think we were going to get any water, honestly. Like the morning of the flood, we didn't think we were going to get any water. We were just leaving just because they told us we had to. But anyway, I'm so thankful now that I put that in the attic. It's a $2,500 instrument, and which I did not want to have to replace.
No. Whoa.
But no, I did lose a lot of guitars in the flood. Yeah.
He moves on, which is a very important lesson, folks. Never let it get you down there. The college thing, unfortunately, you had to drop out. And then what was your next maneuver then? What did you have to